What's up? So this is an improved initiative crash course. I'm gonna record these in parts, so if I realize I made some goofy error, I've wasted only 30 minutes of my life instead of 3 hours. So what is improved initiative? It's an initiative tracker. You can have enemies in it, you can kill them. It tracks HP, it tracks temp HP, it tracks armor class, creature descriptions and abilities, initiative order, reactions, spell slots, spell descriptions. You can see over here. Encounter difficulty, rechargeable abilities, status effects, including status effects with temporary durations, and turn times. And you can also search creatures based off of CR, search creatures based off of creature type, organize them into different little folders, hide monsters from the player view, have initiative rolled for you, have hit points rolled for you, export data to back up or send to friends, save encounters, customize the UI and hotkeys, and probably some other things I'm forgetting about. It's also quite simple to use. So the first thing I'm going to talk about are hotkeys in the collapsed view. So if you mouse over most things, it has an hotkey. For instance, let me find a good one. If I want to launch the player view and I don't want to mouse all the way over here, I can press Alt W and it'll bring up this and I can go to a new window. So if you ever want to learn the hotkeys, you just hover over these. And if you want to actually be able to see what these buttons do, which I imagine you do, you can press this and it'll toggle the wide view. And now you can see what the buttons do. Normally they're collapsed by default, so I'm going to keep these out. So if I talk about a button, you can see what it is. And the first thing we're going to do is add a combatant. We're going to add this Aboleth. All you do is go over here and click it. If you just see this part that just says active combatant and it's telling you to start the encounter, that is because you did what I just did and closed the library reference pane. So you go to this book and you click it and it comes back up and it's going to add a combatant. You can click rapidly to add a ton. And when you want to delete a combatant, you just click on it. Say Aboleth 7 dies. You press delete on your keyboard. Backspace doesn't work. You can press delete though. And it'll select the combatant that is next. So I can actually go here and start mashing delete. Another option you have is pressing the clean encounter button. And that will remove all NPCs, anything that's not a player, and if you're in combat, it will end that encounter. So that's a quick way of doing that. If I want to damage this Aboleth, then I can click on its health over here, and it'll bring up this panel, apply damage or healing, positive numbers damage, negative numbers heal. If you ever feel like emptying your cabinet of alcohol, you can take a shot every time you damage something instead of healing them. There's an easy way to make sure you're doing one and not the other. There's a setting where you can have a heal button. But I typically just use damage and then put in something negative. And it says what you just did on the bottom. So if I want it to reverse, let's say I type in a number. Let's say I heal him for 5, but actually I want it to damage him for 5. Or I do the opposite. I damage him for 5, I meant to heal him. Well, I can see here, applied 5 damage to Aboleth. You go up here, heal them, and then heal them for the rest of the 5. And you'll also notice here there's a panel for characters, and we can add one of those here too. And there's one key difference between creatures in this tab and characters in this tab. So if I delete this Aboleth and I bring him back, he's at full HP. If I damage this character, then I delete Elamir, and then I bring Elamir back, they are at exactly whatever HP was left. So on the right, we can see the data of the selective combatant. We can scroll down here. And you can see there's a few underlined things, and we can click on anything that's underlined. And the most basic thing we can do is if there's a number with a plus or minus next to it, it's underlined. And if we click it, it will roll a d20 with the number we're hovering as a modifier. So this rolls 1d20 plus 5. You can see it roll a 24. The dice roll will be in these brackets here, and it's going to say the bonus. If it has to make a dex saving throw, it doesn't have a bonus to dex saving throws, we can see over here. So we'll just roll it with -1, and it rolls a 14. I don't tend to trust internet dice, but you might want to roll, you might have 5 aboleths, so it might be easier for you to do this than for you to take out physical dice. Oh, this is nice. It'll even show it in bold if it rolls a 20. I think it does the same if it rolls a 1. And before I go on next, before I forget, you can also, it'll also highlight it if you type a number, another number like 2d6 plus 5. This will roll 2d6, and you guessed it, add 5 to the result. The two numbers will be in brackets. It'll add 5 to them. I think it does. It will bold out the max number in case you care about that for some reason. And another thing you'll see is that there are these little bubbles on the bottom. And this is how you track limited use abilities. So here you can see the Aboleth has an enslave feature, and it has it 3 times a day. So once it uses this once, the bubbles aren't completely intuitive. So your immediate thought is going to be to press this bubble on the right, and it doesn't do anything. And that is because when you click a bubble, every bubble to the right of that is cleared. So if I click this bubble, it'll empty it. And if I go to legendary actions and I press this bubble, it'll empty these 2 bubbles. And if you press this X, it'll obviously, this crossed out thing, it'll take out all of them. And if you want to restore something, you can simply click it and it'll fill it in. It'll also fill in everything to the left of it. So if I click this, it'll fill in not just the rightmost bubble, but this bubble that was empty to the left of it. These bubbles will track legendary actions, they'll track limited use abilities. They will also most usefully track spells. If you have an Archmage, you're not going to remember all of this. Especially with him casting, what do we got? He doesn't have shield, but if he did, you would start doing this. Then you use a 4th level, and then you use maybe some spell out of order, like 8th level, then a 5th level. Let's not say he did 3 at once. Makes this a lot easier. And speaking of that, we also have quick access to spell descriptions. If you type out a spell, if you even incidentally type out the name of a spell, I think it's in the Aboleth here somewhere. Nope. Well, if somewhere here it just said the word fly, then it would try and underline it like you have the fly spell here. If I click it, it has a full description. It's only the SRD spells, like if you aren't pirating the books, you can find the system reference document SRD for free. It has a bunch of spells. It won't have some notable things it doesn't have are things from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It doesn't have Chromatic Orb, even though that's in the player's handbook. But it does have a lot of things in it. And if you ever want to see if a spell's here, if I look up Chromatic Orb, for instance, it's not here, but you can always add a new spell. But for now, let's say I don't know what Cone of Cold does. I can click on it. It brings up a description. I can even roll the dice in it. So this rolled 8d8, doing 34 damage. What else do we have here? Yes, I do have a list of things. So whenever we want to start combat, we just go to this Start Encounter button over here. And what it's going to do is roll initiative for everyone. It's going to show what their bonus is, which is very useful because I'll usually roll things by hand. So this will roll a d20 and then add +2 to it, for instance. And it will show you in these boxes what improved initiative rolled for you. And you're free to adjust or replace them. You gave the Aboleth advantage for some reason and they got a 12 on the dice roll. And you could say 12 minus 1 is 11. When you press enter or hit this check mark, it's very important to resist typing something in here and pressing enter, by the way. Do not just click away, do not press enter. Or I'll just hit the check mark. It's something I do on accident. But once you hit this check mark, it'll place everyone in order of their initiative. It'll select the top combatant, and that will also be marked as the active combatant. So this panel on the left that previously had the dictionary is now your active combatant panel. If you'd like to add a monster mid-combat, you can do what we did last time and bring up the library reference pane with this book here. And then when you just want to see whose turn it is again, you press this X. And note that the person who's selected still appears on the right, and it's not necessarily the same person as whose turn it is. Let's say the Archmage casts something on our Aboleth. This makes it easy to say, get the Aboleth's saving throw, and then I can see the saving throw DC. Roll here, oh, to 23. Let's say it failed. I can click a spell and see what banishment does, for instance, how long it lasts. And when it's no longer the Archmage turn, what you want to do and what you always want to do and make a great habit of doing is press next turn. And the reason why is that improved initiative has several tracking features such as turn timers and reactions. And if you don't press next turn, it won't track these properly. But if you do make a habit out of pressing next turn, it'll help you know whose turn it is in case you forget, and all the tracking things will work correctly. And once you end the person on the bottom's turn, of course, it warps back to the front. There is a previous turn button. You have to go in the options and turn that on. That'll be another video, unfortunately. But it's not hard. You can figure it out yourself. If you want to add a combatant mid-combat, we go back to the library reference. Let's say someone summons a zombie. We're going to use this search box. And when you do this, it'll roll initiative for them. And it'll even do it multiple times. If you add multiple of these combatants, it'll give them numbers too, in or out of combat. Then we can go back here. Makes it to the zombie's turn. And let's say one of these zombies, this Archmage has a feature and it increases the AC of their zombies. We have quick edit combatant. And we can make we can increase or decrease his AC. We can change his name. This zombie is Zombie Bob. It's supposed to show its original name. It doesn't. Rename will show its original name. zombie penny. I didn't spell that right, but you can see it says this is originally a zombie. Probably a bug, but whatever. But we can use quick edit combatant, change its max HP, its armor class, its name even. And when the encounter is over, we can press end encounter. It's kind of annoying because it won't place people back in the order you did before. I like to have my players just on the top if I'm testing different encounters. Something useful to know that I didn't mention here. Oh yeah, reminder, you can also press clean encounter. Ellemeyer's a player character, so it didn't clean them up, but it cleaned everyone else up. Something useful to know is this number here. It currently says 0 XP trivial. And if I go up here and add this aboleth, it's going to list out the XP the aboleth's worth and say deadly. And if I keep adding things, it'll add XP and it'll show the total XP they're worth. And it will also show a projected encounter difficulty using the, I think it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, they have math for deciding what the difficulty of an encounter is, how much XP you can throw at the party before the encounter becomes easy, medium, hard. So this makes balancing encounters really easy. It'll adapt as you add or subtract players. So I can say, oh, this is 4 players. Can they take on an air elemental? No. So speaking of that, we can talk about looking up creatures. So I can type this one here. It doesn't do anything. What I should do is do these sorting things. The first sorting number, which is by default sorted by name, isn't really that useful. We can sort by recently used, which you might like. In theory, you could put a bunch of monsters down and form like a palette. Let's say we have a air elemental aboleth zombie themed dungeon. What you really want is this. Currently it's grouped by folders. There's no folders, so it just alphabetizes everything. We can group by challenge rating. We can group by the source it comes from. When you make a monster, always give it a source or a folder. I prefer source. You can group by creature type. Let's say we want this dungeon to have a bunch of Fae in it. And it goes back to folder. So we go over here and group by challenge, and we can see, oh, 2 acolytes is easy. Can I add in a black bear? Now it's hard. Oh, a 3rd black bear is deadly. I better delete him. And if you like the encounter and you don't want to have to put it out manually, you can save the current encounter, give it a name. The button's kind of annoying because there's no way to cancel it. And if I delete these guys, they'll come back. Something to note is by default, it uses the average HP instead of rolling for HP every time. But if it was rolling for HP, it would keep the same HP rolled. So it might be helpful if you have a villain and you want their hit points to be consistent, because me or Seth is tracking it. And something neat you can do is you could even load the encounter multiple times. Notice how it only places the players once. Another important difference between player characters I forgot to say is no matter how much I click this, it will only let me add 1 Illumir. But I can add multiple encounters. For instance, relevant to this campaign, if I wanted to quickly send 2 squads of Loxodon at the party, I could just save a Loxodon squad encounter and then hit it twice. So we'll clean this. And a final thing I will go over. Actually, I'm not done with this. Let me show you a really cool feature. Let's say this is a Fae themed dungeon. So we type Fae. We spell it correctly. Even if they don't have Fey in their name, if their creature type is Fey, it will show them up. And then I can group by challenge rating and toss a Dryad, maybe? 2 Dryads? No, just 1 Dryad. Maybe have a Blinkhound pet. Delete when you're done playing with it. Save the encounter. And now we're going to go over tags. So all a tag is I go over here, I click add tag, and I can put whatever I want. If I try and put the name of a status effect, it will autocomplete it for me. And then when you're done with a tag, you can press this X button. By the way, status effects show up like spells. I don't believe there's any way to add more status effects, which is a little unfortunate. I wonder if I type fly, will it do? Oh, you could maybe fake it with spells if you want to be funny. Now there's a couple of interesting things you can do with tags. The obvious one is you can put concentrating. And if this person takes damage, it will prompt a concentration check. It won't say what the bonus is, annoyingly enough, but it'll say the DC, and it will tell you what it rolled. And if you're rolling for yourself, you can choose whether to fail it or pass it. If you fail it, it will automatically get rid of the concentration tag. And if you pass it, of course, the concentration tag will stay. So this is a great feature for not forgetting that someone's concentrating on something. Players will conveniently forget it. You'll forget it with your monsters. You'll forget it with players. Use the concentration tag. Another nice part is, let's say this guy takes, I don't know, 25 damage. It'll also tell you, well, he has to be concentrating. It will also tell you the DC. So if it's DC, he took 25 damage, cut that in half, that's 12. And that should be it. One more thing I'll show you, because it's right there, is I can press this button or select them and press H, and it will hide this person in the player view. So let's say there are a couple of acolytes sneaking up on the party. I want to be able to mess around in this panel, but I want the acolyte out because I want to see what they can do. Well, I can hide them, and if I launch player view, if you're showing someone else the player view, you can just hit copy URL to clipboard, by the way. We're going to paste. And we can also see the tags, by the way. We will see that the acolytes are not here. Of course, if the players are watching the player view, they might notice you quickly add an acolyte and then like, oh, what was that? And then it disappears suddenly. So what you can do instead is hold Alt on your keyboard, click a monster, and they will start out hidden. So you could have this guy as bait, like, oh, come out here, it's safe. And then reveal them all at once. And I'm going to show you a trick. If you hold Control, you can select multiple enemies at once. You can even mess with their spells all together. What we're going to do here is we are going to press the reveal button. It's going to reveal each and every one of them. One of them still seems to be hidden. Or it's just acting buggy. Weird. Who's missing? Number 5? There we go. All reliable. Turn them off and back on again. Let's say our two remaining alive people. Gregor cast Cone of Cold or something. Thunder Wave. And Gregor rolls. What you can do is you can select someone and hold control, and it will select multiple people. I already said this before. I'm having Alzheimer's. But this is important. This is worth saying a second time. Instead of doing the revealing them, we're going to apply damage. You can click here, you can press T. If you click their health, it'll only try and damage one of them. But if I hit apply damage, let's say Thunder Wave does 5 damage, they all fail. It'll apply to each and every one of them. And you don't have to click each of them individually. You can also do this if you need to delete specific groups of monsters a third time. Just hold control to select multiple of them. Let's say these two die. Select these two, press delete, they are gone. And there's one final trick I'll show you. And that is when you roll something, you might have noticed this. This rolled a 1. If I try and damage them, it will automatically put 1 in it. So he takes 1 damage. If I do a, I don't know, level 2 2d8 ability, now it's 12. It rolled a 12 previously, and now it's going to paste 12 in here. It's even highlighted, so you can copy it and paste it somewhere easily. Didn't really do that as conveniently as I was hoping it would do it. But it's highlighted for copy and pasting. You can see that here. And that should be pretty much it for the basic controls. There's more things you can do. I'll show you it briefly. I'm going to make a whole video on my recommended setup. But you can go to settings and commands, and it will give you all kinds of options. You can add things to the side over here, like where tag and visibility is. You can add things to this panel. Very nice. And that is it.